Hello, everyone's Forest Focus. It's a tough time to be a Nottingham Forest fan with the hope of the summer long gone. Will it be a winter of discontent or will Sean Dyche spring into action and save the season? Joining me to give his view, it's great to welcome back renowned sports journalist Henry Winter. Henry, good morning. How are you doing?
Hi, Matt. Very good.
Good to have you with us. Normally, you've been on in happier circumstances when talking about Forest. It's not, as mentioned, not going too well this season. Just in general, what have you made from it? From a more neutral view than we often get on here.
But isn't it happier circumstances? I mean, I saw the highlights of the weekend, and you weren't at the races, and I get that. But you've got a better manager in terms of a fit for the club in now than I think when I spoke to you last time when Postecoglou was in. So I mean, I like Dyche. I mean, I spoke to him about 2 weeks ago. He was in. I work for TalkSport occasionally, and he was in there doing some work. And we just had a sort of chat for about 10 minutes with Johnny Owen. He was on with Johnny, who you know well, and he was obviously wanting to get back in. He looked refreshed, hungry. People say, why do managers go back in? They've got their compensation. They could head off to Dubai or to the golf club, but they're competitive creatures, and I think it's a good fit on many levels. Sean Dyche coming in. So look, I take your point, and look, our moods are judged sort of in a micro way, sort of minute by minute, throw in by throw in, result by result. But I think from a longer perspective, Postecoglou is gone, end of an era. I think I tweeted, which might have been a little bit. Well, no, it wasn't harsh actually. I thought he was a bad fit from the start. And I think Dyche coming in, first result was good. You'd have been there, presumably in midweek, and and then he just now needs to build again. But I think, looking at it from afar, there seems to be a reconnection between dugout and pitch, between dugout and fans, most importantly. So I don't think it's the gloomiest moment, despite the performance and the result of the weekend.
Good. Well, we'll get into that a bit more around the hopes for the season. We discussed it throughout the week, really, as we record this. So yeah, I am optimistic, as I said on Sunday's post-match show, that we'll be okay. How much do you think Andrew's appointment set us back? And you tweeted at the time, I remember you tweeting it, that he was not an upgrade on Nuno and you thought it was a bad choice. How much will we live to regret that, do you think?
Well, fair play to Marinakis. He acknowledged the mistake and acted pretty quickly. You would have been at the game. I was watching it on television, and the moment in the second half they showed the empty seat, I thought, that was a Saturday lunchtime game, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I just thought, well, he's not going to survive. And it's quite, not amusing, but I always raise an eyebrow when people were saying, well, the decision was made 22 minutes after the match when the statement came out. I bet it was made 22 minutes into the second half. The moment you saw an empty seat there, it was like the old Caesar with the thumbs down, the emperor with the thumbs down. That was it. So, yeah, look, very engaging character, and the media who deal with him on a more regular basis than me really like him, engaging character, particularly the print media. But I just didn't think he was the right fit. Tactically and also because he's clearly not an upgrade on Nuno. And maybe I was slightly biased because I'm an admirer of Nuno, although I could see the drift, which you would have seen more closely than me, before the end of last season, dipping out of the Champions League positions. But I just thought Nuno made good players better. You saw Gibbs-White got in the England squad, Elliot Anderson obviously as well, outstanding under Nuno. So it was a little bit about that tweet was partly about Ange, because I saw what happened certainly in the league at Spurs, but also slightly protecting Nuno.
Is this sort of the double-edged sword of the Marinakis ownership, in that, where we were to where we are, we've made incredible strides. Our recruitment's been great. The ambition that he has instilled a great mindset at the club, but the ambition that he has means he'll probably make a rogue appointment that other owners won't make. And is this kind of the rough with the smooth that comes with this kind of ownership?
Yeah, and it's very interesting talking to Forest fans and hearing them how they react. Particularly the external noise around Marinakis, which can be quite critical. But I think you guys are right in the middle of it, and you see what he's done for the club. I think I think there's a lot of support for Marinakis. Obviously, his judgment was questioned immediately, I think, by Forest fans and by the rest of us over the appointment of Postecoglou. But I think he's done a lot of good. I mean, he's taking you on quite a journey. There are bound to be sort of mistakes and hitting the odd boulder in the road along the way. But yeah, I mean, with a lot of owners, particularly owners who are new, in inverted commas, to English football, if not football itself, it's about the advice they get and who they got around them that they can really trust, whether it's agents, whether it's sporting directors. How much of that is Edu, who probably needs to do a long interview with you and sort of explain exactly what's going on, or talk to the fans. There always has to be that transparency. That's not particularly a Forest thing. You can go to clubs all around the country. And there needs to be more transparency and connection between boardroom and supporters, because it's your club after all. I mean, Marinakis will come and go, Edu will come and go, managers will come and go, but you will always be there. And I think that needs to be reflected by the better owners, like a Parish. I mean, he's probably not your most popular character, but Parish at Palace is good. Bloom is very good at Brighton in terms of talking to fans on the way into the stadium. He is a fan. I think that's important, but look, that's a broader issue. In terms of Marinakis, I quite like the way that he reacted to his own mistake and reacted quickly.
Talk to us a little bit more about Dyche then, in your experience of seeing him at Everton and Burnley. He's got this reputation of, firefighter, the modern day Sam Allardyce kind of thing. Is that fair, unfair? Do you think we'll see more from him or not?
I used to go into Burnley and have a sort of coffee with him, and if I was sort of interviewing a player there, and you would look around and you would see the sort of, the sports science, the nutrition, the attention to detail, the marginal gains that Sean Dyche was not really associated with, but was totally embedded at the heart of Burnley's operation. And he would then come out in a press conference afterwards, after he'd had like an intense but quite sort of eye-opening conversation in terms of his views of the game and his use of analytics and sports science. And then it would all be sort of knockabout in the press conference, and all the headlines would be Sean Dyche has a blast and gravelly voice, bouncer looking Sean Dyche, who looks like he's just sort of stumbled out of the Hacienda in 1984 or whatever. Whereas in fact, that's not him. I mean, it's a great media image, but that's not him. There's a lot more sophistication to it. I mean, you don't grow up at a club like Nottingham Forest with Brian Clough as the manager without being a thinker about the game. And he's always been that. So, yeah, I mean, I like him. We always used to have this thing in the press box where at the start of the season, while we're sort of waiting for a game to start or knocking around before the Community Shield or whatever, it would always be, who would you most like, of managers, current Premier League managers, who would you most like to go for a drink with? And who would you most like alongside you in a barroom fight if the evening went on a bit too long? And Sean Dyche always scored very highly on both counts. But, that's maybe playing back into his image again, whereas actually there's a far more sophisticated presence there. So I'm sure, Forest will respond to that. And I think what was really needed, and Ange didn't get it. I mean, Ange would go into I don't want this to be too much of an anti-Ange thing, but Ange would go into press conferences and talk about Spurs. I mean, it's like getting married and talking about, what you got up to in Fresh this week. Move on. And obviously, if Sean Dyche wants to talk about Pos, you can obviously talk about Nottingham Forest and growing up there. I think having Stone and Wone, who you will know far better than I, but their sort of emotional connection and the fans' response to the players, those two, I mean, I think that's clever. That's always going to happen. And when you go into Burnley, you'd have a chat with Ian Wone as well, and you go, oh my God, these are a proper football people, but who really know their stuff, the sports science and all that. So that connection, there's a reconnection, I think, with the club just looks more reconnected. And I know it didn't look so much the case at the weekend, but maybe that's because one or two players are tired. Elliot Anderson's had a busy year, emotionally going from the under-21s to the seniors. I think he's played all 4 of the games he's been called up for, started them for Tuchel. That is emotionally and physically draining. That whole circus, as it is, around England, the demands, the intensities, the fact that he was a huge player in Newcastle and Nottingham, Bristol to an extent, and now he's a national figure. So I think that's, that weighs in how you deal with that. Although from what I know of Elliot Anderson, he's a very settled individual. So look, there's maybe one or two individual things of one or two players looking a bit tired, but certainly in the game of last week, Milenkovic and Murillo looked strong as a partnership again. You were there, you will have seen it more closely than me, but just looking at it from the outside, there seemed to be that reconnection, and also it's a slightly more sophisticated touch that people were expecting in terms of Morgan Gibbs-White's movement. I mean, we know him as a 10, but he seemed to be sort of pushing up, and he seemed to have a little bit more sort of license to move. Good to see Hudson-Odoi back as well. So yeah, I just think I can get it from so many bases. It's a slightly more of a sort of Nuno approach than Postecoglou's high line approach, which clearly didn't work with the centre halves in particular. So, yeah, look, I just think he's a good appointment. He's probably not a sort of sexy appointment, but maybe they'll make how long's the contract? Effectively 18 months. Maybe another decision will be made in the summer. And remember, it'll be a very fluid summer because World Cup tournament summers tend to be very fluid with managers. So, but look, I'm sure he'll get you out of trouble now. But the problem, and this is one thing that has to be stated, is this will be playing on managers' minds, owners' minds, is that the three teams who've come up, two of them could stay up. I mean, they've all done better than expectations. So you can't go, at least two of the three will go down. We're only really worrying about 18th place. So that will focus owners' minds as well.
Let's just take a quick word of thanks to Trent Navigation. As a reminder, Saturday's game is not on TV, but you can enjoy a post-match show with the Fun Boy too. So enjoy the build-up with Fothers and then head back to the NAV after the game against Manchester United for the Fun Boy 2 show. And as mentioned on screen, if you get to the NAV before 5:30 p.m. on the day we play Graz, you can get a free pint of Madri, and they have discount pizzas all night, £10 pizzas at the NAB when we play Graz in between the United and the Leeds games. So enjoy the game against Graz in the Europa League at the Trent Navigation, and thanks as ever for their support. It's interesting what you say about Dyche. I was talking to someone last week about him, and they said not so much that his media image is a front, but they said he's got much more depth to him. He's a really deep thinker in private, and that he's a really intelligent guy. Not that he doesn't come across as intelligent in public, but the Sean Dyche we see isn't always the Sean Dyche that you get behind closed doors. So it's interesting to hear you echo that in a different way. Just on a couple of players there that you mentioned then, on Elliot, I mean, he struggled at the weekend. Douglas Luiz did as well. Bournemouth are so impressive. The way they swarm and they hunt in packs sort of reminds me of Man City when they were really, really flying. But on Elliot, do you worry that not that he's going to burn out, but he's going to need a rest at some point, or he's going to suffer?
I love the way you call him Elliot. I mean, he's so sort of embedded in the club now. He's just, he's not Elliot Anderson or Anderson. He is now Elliot. He is one of yours, which is great, because in a way you've been the making or the remaking of him, because he wouldn't have got into that Newcastle midfield. Certainly at the time, PSR, whatever. I mean, it was a brilliant deal that you did. So yeah, I hope Elliot, look, he's such a focused professional individual with such good people around him in terms of his family and advisors, and he's a genuine, it's like, maybe it's a bit of a cliche, and Gaza might run against that cliche, but a lot of the players from the Northeast, Carrick and Shearer and players like that, they're pretty grounded individuals. They tend not to get carried away because people up there wouldn't allow them to do that, family, friends, whoever. So yeah, he seems so I wouldn't worry about him. There are some young players. I mean, he's 22, 23, is he? He must be 22. He's just come out the under 21s. Yeah, so he's you worry about some young players, in terms of in the England squad, what's it going to do to them? That is not an issue. He's not going to get carried away with it. The only issue for him being in the England squad is that there is so much attention on him, and he can't really walk down the street without people saying, "Oh, is it coming home?" and all that sort of extra baggage. And are you practicing penalties? And but the 2 or 3 times I've had a sort of proper chat with him, he's just fantastic. I mean, just little things like Wolves End Boys Club. I mean, I do 1 or 2 things for them, and I was up there when Michael Carrick was up there last season or the year before, and he was opening a new pavilion or a new pitch or something. And Elliot Anderson just turned up just to show his support, and I think he's the 6th player from Wallsend Boys Club to have gone on and played for England. And I like that. He'd been invited, but he just turned up. Footballers have busy schedules, but he made sure it was important to him that he turned up for Wallsend.
The other player we've got in the England squad at present is Morgan Gibbs-White, who's having a pretty poor season, I think, by his standards. And I felt he was lucky to be in the England squad last time. A big few months for him, for Forest, and also if he's going to get in the England World Cup squad, does he need to pick up, do you think, or not?
Well, if you watched how Bellingham played yesterday, he'll realise that the fight for the number 10 shirt is going to be difficult, because that's really where he's going to get in. I know he can play slightly deeper, but I just think that it's going to be a fight for him. But, everyone's expecting a 26-man squad for the World Cup. But FIFA could expand it. They might say because of the heat will allow it to be a bigger squad. So, yeah, I mean, if he's practicing penalties, I mean, it's worth taking. Worth taking simply for someone who can come off the bench late on and take a penalty in a knockout game. That's so important. Yeah, I think I would assume he'd be in the next squad. I mean, Bellingham, you would assume would be back, but yeah, I mean, he's rated by England. I don't think there are any sort of issues there. No one's coming off saying, he wasn't giving everything in training, but absolutely he does. I mean, Tuchel's interesting on this because he says, well, I pick on form, but managers all say that. They've all got their favourites. He was picking Jordan Henderson when he wasn't really in form. So yeah, but Gibbs-White, absolutely, he needs to respond. And look, the weekend was poor, but the game last week, he sounded like he was more back to his old self. So let's hope we see more of that.
Yeah, he was decent against Porto, certainly. Let's look at just a little bit of the wider picture. This league table I'll put is very slightly out of date because this was done while Everton were playing and they lost the game. So they're still on 11 points. You're confident we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but how do you see the bottom of the league shaping up? Which teams are you really looking at there, or anyone beyond that might struggle?
Well, having praised Nuno, I think he's just in an absolute mess there. I mean, you've dropped the United off West Ham. I know that's for reasons of space, but they're certainly not United at the moment. They are such a divided club. You can see their issues on the pitch. Jarrod Bowen, if they had more like him, they would have a chance. And issues between the fans and the board with Sullivan and Brady, the issues around the stadium. I mean, you go into the City Ground, and that is, the bottom three there. You go into there to your club, and there is a good atmosphere, supportive atmosphere. Wolves, obviously, Molineux, toxic at the weekend with that, with that late loss to Burnley. And, you're looking up the table. Okay, Burnley promoted 16th, Leeds United promoted, and you can't even see Sunderland, who's sort of disappearing off the horizon. It's the old sort of CFAX thing, they're in the top, they're on a different page. You always used to wait to scroll down to see your team, they're, oh God, they're on the second page. But yeah, look, you've got an issue with the promoted clubs doing well. And there's Leeds United, Ellen Road will always be a fortress. Burnley have a togetherness under Parker. Sunderland's recruitment, particularly the inspirational signing of Granit Xhaka. But if I was looking at but from your perspective, West Ham are a mess. Wolves are a mess. If you keep selling your players, your best players, then you're going to struggle. Cunha, Nore, players like that. So those two look like they could be cut away, but you need to pick up some points. So Dyche has come in at the right time. But yeah, Fulham are strange because you look at Fulham, you think, well, they've got some decent players and they've got an outstanding manager, Marco Silva, who probably will be in a European team next if he doesn't sort of sign a new contract, if he doesn't stay on. It's surprising to see Fulham down there look, they lack goals. But you've got a strong spine. You look at that spine. You've got a good goalkeeper who's in the PFA team of the year, good centre forward, and I know you've got sort of different options up front there. Your squad should not be down there, and I think that is primarily because of a strange managerial appointment.
So I mean, our worry is we've scored 5 goals in 9 games. Do you think over the course of 38, we'll have enough to get the goals we need, and Dyche will sort out the defence?
He'll sort out the defence because that's what he does, and also because you've only got to look at particularly the weekend games. I mean, it's so much of it is about set pieces, and everyone says, well, it's all about attacking set pieces. Well, the flip side of that is defend them better. And whether that's being more robust, protecting your goalkeeper better, a little bit. I mean, I was at Arsenal yesterday, and Eze scored a very good technical goal, obviously from that header back from Gabriel, but Wharton had just slightly switched off. So it's little things like that that Dyche will drum into his Forest players, that total concentration and sorting out that defensive block and that defensive approach to set pieces, as well as obviously attacking them down the other end. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Sean does, as well as, am I getting into your habit now? Sean Dyche does, as well as sort of, unleashing Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi.
We've, since Nuno left, we've deliberately not talked about him because he's gone. But I'll ask you one on Nuno, because I know you're a big advocate of him. Do you feel like he made a big error taking the first job that came up and just going straight into West Ham, or is that too hindsighty on my part?
No, I don't think it's too hindsighty. I just think the sort of the nature of these managers is that even though he's got I'm sure he's done well with sort of payoffs and wages and what have you. They're competitive creatures, and it must be slightly strange for them. And I've written books with players who were in the last year of their playing career, and they were scared of what the future would be, not sort of financially, not sort of necessarily sort of domestically, but because of losing that adrenaline. When the curtain closes, when the applause stops, it's very difficult. And it's the same for managers, obviously, even though they're sort of often twice the age. And it's difficult. He wants to be managing. There is obviously, it's a profession, but it's also a passion. I mean, someone like Nuno loves being out on the grass, spending time with the players, almost that paternal approach to players, which Nuno always had in him. We've had this conversation. He's quite a sort of sensitive, sentient individual, genuinely cares about people, sees a dressing room as a family. So yeah, did he jump? I mean, West Ham it's London. It's got a reputation as a club. You get to work with Jarrod Bowen. He obviously knew Kilman well, mate. And you would just think that maybe he looked at them and thought, oh, they're a distressed asset that I can enhance my own reputation by improving, by making a few tweaks. He probably didn't look at the small print around West Ham and realised all the many issues there. But no, I don't. We all enjoy working, whether we need to financially, or because it's adrenaline, or because it's work ethic, or it's because it's what we do. And I think Nuno is very much in that camp.
Our next game's against Manchester United, and obviously they've improved. They've won 3 in a row. I did watch the game against Brighton, and I still question if that's really set in and if they really have turned a corner. I thought Brighton were, should have got something from the game, even from 3-0 down. I don't think the third goal should have stood. Do you think United, as our next opponents, really have turned the corner under Amorim, or they still got those vulnerabilities?
I mean, one of the advantages of not being in Europe for them is that they can prepare all week. So physically they should be fresher. Tactically, he can get this system more embedded in them. Matheus Cunha has just been outstanding for them, whether playing as a false 9 as last week, or as the sort of the left number 10. They've got obviously opposite Brian and Bremer. You see what Manchester United really needed. They needed leaders. You could argue they need them in the boardroom, but they needed them very much on the pitch as well. Cunha is a leader in terms of his fearless. He'll take the ball. The shirt doesn't weigh heavily on him. Brian Mbeumo as well. You saw his work ethic, the goals and everything. Šeško at some point will come good, although your centre halves might relish that sort of more physical challenge. I would still say they've got an issue in central midfield. I mean, Elliot Anderson will walk into that Manchester United midfield. I mean, Casemiro is good, and he's still playing back-to-back 90 minutes for Brazil. But I still think there's a lack of mobility in midfield. They slightly tweaked it with Cunha, so drops back in there. But yeah, I think you'll find a little bit of space, and there are gaps behind the wing backs. Particularly, I mean, Amad Diallo is a terrific player, but if he plays as a right wing back, he is a winger. He is not a fullback. So your left attack can get in behind him. So look, there are options there. They've improved in goal. Matthias de Ligt's having a good season. Bruno Fernandes is not a central midfielder, but he's playing there. But one thing he will do 2 or 3 times a game is that the person that he is marking, whether it's a Gibbs-White or an Anderson to an extent, they will run off him and they'll get into space because it's not his game to track runners.
Thank you very much to Vesta Blinds, second sponsors of the show today with Henry Winter. Do us a favour, click the link on the description, vestablinds.com, for made-to-measure shutters and blinds across the East Midlands. Numbers on the screen as well, and it's info@vestablinds.com if you're looking to email them to find out more about what they do. As ever, or with almost all our sponsors, in fact all our sponsors, I think they are Forest fans, so do check out the link, and thanks to James and the guys at Vesta Blinds for their support as ever. I hope kind of our pacey attacking players are played and they get some joy. I think they will. Cunha's so good. Like the player, you're right about players who can take the pressure and play for Manchester United. They've added them, so I'm glad. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game, but I think we can get something. Just lastly, our next 3 fixtures are actually Manchester United, Leeds, and then Liverpool. The Premier League this season is a strange league. It feels like Arsenal are the only team that have really cracked it. I mean, what are your thoughts on Liverpool as our upcoming opponent and generally the top end of the league?
Set pieces have become so important. I mean, look at Arsenal. I mean, again, set pieces for them were superb. We touched on it in terms of Forest needing to defend better. Liverpool, I mean, they've lost that aura. I mean, in a way, we didn't expect them to have it last season, and Arne Slot sort of was kind of ahead of schedule. But you look at players who you associated as invincibles, as footballers of the year or the leading players of the year, nationally, let alone for their clubs. And Virgil van Dijk isn't quite the player he was. I'm sure he'll regain that, but he looks a little bit vulnerable, not helped by having Konate. He looks like a skittish kitten at times, but beside him. And if you got pace, unleash pace on him. Fullbacks can be got at. The central midfield triumph from last season, they've lost that. Gravenberch will probably be back fit, I think, by the time you play them, and that's frustration for you because he's been fantastic for them. Mo Salah scored a fantastic goal at the weekend, but didn't do much else. He's in a sort of slight slump at the moment. But look, they've got outstanding talent who can punish you. But I guess their best 2 players this season have been Szoboszlai and Gakpo. And they need more players to sort of lift that. But yeah, I wouldn't write them off completely yet.
No, I think we'll do well to get anything there. I think they're still obviously a top side. Just lastly, before we let you go, we've not mentioned Europe at all. I'm conscious of that. I feel like my mentality is the Premier League's everything, but the Europa League, how do you view how we should approach that from here, considering we're in the relegation zone? Is it a sideshow, or should we still be going for it?
Go for it. I mean, it's fantastic. Doesn't it get you in the Champions League?
If we win yeah.
If you win it. But why not? Why not have a go at winning it? I think it's I think an English team may well win the Champions League this year, but why not have a go at the Europa League as well? It's like Palace, if I dare mention them. I'm sure they'll be going for the Conference League as well. So, I don't know what odds you get on a clean sweep of English clubs. This English arrogance, Premier League arrogance. I can hear my French counterparts sort of having a go at me as we speak. Well, why not? Why not? I mean, you've got a decent squad. Why not have a go at it? And I don't know, have you got any players you're going to lose to AFCON?
Well, Olaena, who we've not had anyway, Sangare and Awonyi off the top of my head would be the 3. So, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like that's more of an issue in terms of starting for other clubs than for you. But the World Cup will be a focus for a lot of players. But then, you get this international break, November out the way, and then you can sort of focus a little bit more. But I agree with you on Anderson. I do think he needs a little bit of a rest. But why not go for Europe? I mean, I had to do on a radio show yesterday the sort of, the greatest moments for British clubs in Europe, and we had an argument over which was more important, 79 or 80. I mean, the person I was arguing with was saying 79 because it was the first. 80 was against a very good Hamburg team with Keegan. I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to recount probably one of your earliest memories, sitting up in your cot, recounting the sort of the lineup.
Actually, I wasn't born until 1982. But
oh, well, that absolutely dates me. I can remember it very well. Yeah, nipping home from school and watching that. Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's what you're about. I can remember the first time I went into the old boardroom at the City ground, and it was quite low key. There was a sort of fireplace, and then there were 2 replica European Cups up there. And I'd actually, being sort of nosy, I wandered in on my own. And it is actually quite, we as sort of journalists and podcast hosts, we're very fortunate in terms of the places that we go to. And there's not a lot that takes my breath away. But just standing in that room and just feeling all the history and just seeing those 2 trophies and going, this is Nottingham Forest. This is the club of Anderson. And yeah, I just think it's, go for it. Go for it in Europe because, I mean, it's not quite a Wigan situation where you won the FA Cup and you got relegated and then you were sort of kind of like doomed for seasons to come. I mean, I still think you can get out of this hole. Your biggest issue is that the promoted teams are flying at the moment.
Yeah, they are. I still think Burnley. I mean, you can't talk down the promoted teams. I think Burnley will struggle longer term, and West Ham and Wolves look like they're in real trouble. So yeah, as mentioned, hopefully we shall be okay. Now, I know you're not bothered about plugging your own stuff, but I'll give you an opportunity if there's anything you want to plug before we let you go.
Not really. I'm just sort of I'll plug one of my neighbours who, as you know, I live in the East Midlands, and I guess it's slightly more of a sort of Leicester or sort of Peterborough United area. But one of my neighbours has just got the biggest Nottingham Forest flag. I mean, it is absolutely huge. It's like half the size of a tennis court. And he has it up in whatever conditions. And I drive. I mean, it's literally like 250 yards from here. And I like that, because I love the colour. I love the crest. There's something about sort of the livery of Nottingham Forest that always resonated. But I just like that. There's one guy living surrounded by Leicester and Peterborough fans, and he'll go into the pub and you'll see him in the pub and he will just literally have a conversation. I haven't maybe seen him for like 2 weeks or whatever. And he'll knot into exactly the last conversation that we were having, almost like the ... in a sentence. Of course, it will be Forest related, whether it's Nuno, whether it's Ange, whether it's Elliot Anderson. Sorry. And I love all that. And this is... I'm fortunate that I talk to, a lot of fans from a lot of clubs, whether on social media or wherever, just bumping into fans going in and out of matches. What I love about, and there's one Forest fan who I met queuing up for a coffee in the ground, and we swap numbers, and he sends me just long, almost like match reports, detailed dissection of what it's like watching the game from his season ticket holder perspective, having been watching the club for sort of 45 years. And what I find, the last thing I'll say about this, because you think I'm sort of blowing smoke up you, what I like about Forest fans and why I follow a few on social media and obviously follow you, is that you're actually very good bellwether on and judges of issues in the game generally. Because I think you've seen a lot. You've seen the bad side, but you've also seen the good side. I would include Villa fans in that. Obviously, they had their trophy, their big trophy in 82. And I think a lot of fans of clubs like yours, of maybe it's a Midlands thing, of Villa, provide a lot of sensible takes on the game, whether it's European Super League, whether it's ticket prices, whether it's owners, whether it's managers, all the sort of the issues that pertain to all clubs. I think a lot of your fans speak very sensibly on. So if I'm going to plug anything, I will plug the thank you to the knowledge of the Forest fans who educate me.
Lovely stuff. Right, we shall leave it there. If you've enjoyed this, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe. If you're a member, you'll get early access to anything like this pre-recorded with Henry, or a lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify would be great. Back tomorrow with our Man United match preview. But in the meantime, thank you very much to Henry. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.